Chloe, a petite girl standing just under 4'7", appeared fragile and alarmingly young, no more than 10 years old by the looks of her. She wore a plain white dress that hung loosely on her slender frame, and her large, round eyes were filled with fear and pain. What was most shocking, though, was her swollen belly, grotesquely out of place on her small body. Beside her, Ethan, his face a mask of anguish and desperation, bolted into the hospital, cradling her in his arms. "Doctor, please, she's about to have the baby," he cried out, his voice echoing through the sterile halls. His shouts grabbed everyone's attention. Nurses, patients, visitors all turned to witness the unfolding crisis. The nurses, shocked but professional, rushed to assist, while those nearby exchanged glances filled with disbelief and concern. One nurse hurried forward, trying to stay composed, despite the surreal scene before her. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice steady, though the confusion gnawed at her. "She's in labor!" Ethan shouted, his voice trembling with urgency. "We need help now!" The nurse wasted no time, calling into her intercom with a steady hand. "Stretcher to the main entrance. Immediately." While they waited for help, she knelt beside Chloe, offering gentle words of comfort. "Hold on, sweetheart. We're going to take care of you." Yet inside her mind raced with indignation and questions. How could a child so young be in this condition? When the stretcher arrived, the nurses carefully placed Chloe onto it and whisked her toward the emergency room. Ethan attempted to follow, but a nurse gently stopped him. "I'm sorry, sir. You can't go any further," she said, her tone kind but firm. "We'll take care of her, but we need to know what happened." Ethan nodded weakly, his face etched with a mix of helplessness and dread. She's my responsibility," he choked out, barely able to find the words. "I can't leave her alone." In the operating room, the medical team worked swiftly to stabilize Chloe. The lead doctor, a man seasoned by decades of practice, found himself shaken. As he scrubbed his hands for surgery, he muttered under his breath, "What kind of monster would do this?" His eyes burned with outrage. "She's just a child." Meanwhile, in the waiting room, the murmurs grew louder. People who had witnessed Chloe's arrival began to talk, first in whispers, but soon in hushed conversations. "Did you see that girl? She can't be more than 10 years old," a pregnant woman remarked, her face pale with shock. "And the man with her?" another added, her voice dripping with disdain. "He's got to be the one responsible. How could anyone let this happen?" "He's probably a sicko," muttered someone else, their words filled with disgust. "He should be locked up." Ethan, seated alone in a corner, sat with his head in his hands, trying to drown out the venomous chatter around him. Every word cut deeper, but he couldn't afford to care what people thought. All that mattered was Chloe and her survival. In the operating room, the doctor approached Chloe, his voice calm but resolute. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you're okay," he promised, though the weight of the situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. The medical team sprang into action, preparing for the unknown. Nurses bustled in and out, retrieving equipment, but no one dared meet Ethan's eyes. Their thoughts were with the little girl on the table, and the question lingered. How did this happen to her? Time felt as though it had stopped, the hospital air thick with tension and anticipation. Outside the operating room, the murmurs of indignation and curiosity filled the space, like a rising tide of judgment. But inside, only Chloe and the doctors stood at the center of it all, fighting for her life, and the life of her unborn child. As the minutes stretched into what felt like hours, Ethan Moore sat motionless in the corridor, his body hunched over, his face hidden in his hands, quietly sobbing as the weight of worry and fear suffocated him. The fate of Chloe tormented his every thought. Around him, the quiet whispers had escalated into full-fledged gossip. "Did you see her?" one woman whispered, her tone a mixture of disbelief and shock. "She can't be older than 10. "And the man with her," another replied, scorn clear in her voice. "What kind of monster allows something like this to happen?" "He must be a predator," someone else added, disgust thick in their words. "He should be in prison for what he's done to that poor girl." Ethan lifted his head, his eyes swollen and raw from crying. He wanted to block out the harsh whispers, but each word felt like a blade carving deeper into his chest. He couldn't change what people thought. Not now. Not when every second was drenched in fear over Chloe's condition. "We need to call the cops," a voice demanded from the back of the crowded room. "We can't just let this go." A nurse, her face a blend of stern professionalism and restrained empathy, stepped toward Ethan. "Sir, we need to know exactly what happened," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. Ethan's gaze locked onto hers, desperate and hollow. "Chloe, she just needs help. That's all that matters now," he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of his fear. The nurse nodded, realizing she wouldn't get much more from him in this state. "We'll do everything we can for her," she said, trying to provide some comfort. But the tension in the waiting room was mounting. An older woman, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, could no longer contain her anger. "It's shameful. That man should be behind bars," she spat, glaring at Ethan with disgust. "Yeah, someone like that shouldn't be free," another person chimed in, and soon others joined the chorus of condemnation. "Please, calm down," one of the head nurses called out, attempting to keep the room under control. "This is a hospital. Our priority is the patients." "But we can't just stand by and ignore this," a younger woman snapped, casting a furious look at Ethan. "How could anyone do something so awful?" The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement as several people began dialing the police. The air was thick with judgment, and Ethan felt the walls closing in around him. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block out the rising tide of hostility. Suddenly, a large, muscular man pushed himself up from his seat and stormed toward Ethan. Without a word, he grabbed Ethan by the collar, yanking him up from the chair. "You're a disgusting human being," the man roared, his face flushed with fury. "How could you do that to a kid?" Shocked and terrified, Ethan raised his hands in defense. "No, wait, you don't understand," he pleaded, his voice trembling with panic. "There's nothing to understand." The man shot back, tightening his grip. "You're a monster, and you need to pay for what you did." Just as the situation teetered on the edge of violence, a nurse rushed over, pushing herself between them. "Stop! Let him go!" she yelled, her body shielding Ethan. "The police are on their way. Let them handle this." The man released Ethan with a rough shove, sending him stumbling back into the chair. The nurse quickly checked on him, making sure he was unharmed, before turning to the irate man. "I understand you're angry, but we can't allow violence. Let the authorities do their job." Ethan sat there, breathless and shaken, his heart racing. He knew nothing he said would change what they thought of him, not now, but he had to hold it together. For Chloe. A few agonizing minutes later, 2 police officers entered the room, their expressions grim and official. They walked straight to Ethan. "Sir, you need to come with us," one of the officers said, placing a firm but controlled hand on Ethan's shoulder. "But, Chloe, she's—" Ethan tried to speak, his voice failing him once again. "We're going to investigate what happened," the other officer said in a steady tone. but we need you to come with us and answer a few questions." Ethan stood, his heart heavy, his mind swimming with uncertainty and fear for Chloe. He could still feel the eyes of the room on him, their silent accusations weighing him down as he followed the officers outside. Each step toward the police car felt like a march of shame, with every whispered judgment from the crowd like a barb lodged in his soul. When they reached the station, Ethan was led into a cold, featureless interrogation room. The grey walls closed in on him, and the faint hum of the fluorescent lights above did nothing to ease the oppressive silence. The metal table and stiff chairs added to the sense of isolation that gripped him. "Sit down," one of the detectives commanded, motioning to the chair across from him. Ethan did as he was told, the handcuffs cutting into his wrists. The detective, a tall, weathered man, sat down with a thick file in hand. "I'm Detective Reed, and this is Detective Murphy," he said, gesturing to his partner, who was already scribbling in a notepad. "We've had multiple reports accusing you of a very serious crime. We want to hear your side of the story." Ethan drew in a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Chloe isn't a child," he began, his voice unwavering yet laden with the weight of emotion. "She's my wife. She's 25 years old, but she has a rare medical condition that makes her appear much younger." The detectives exchanged glances, their faces blank, but their skepticism unmistakable. "You really expect us to buy that?" Murphy asked, his voice edged with doubt. "Sounds like a convenient excuse." "It's not an excuse," Ethan replied firmly. "We can provide medical records to back it up. Chloe has a pituitary gland disorder, which stunted her growth." Reed leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "So, why hasn't anyone heard about this condition before? And why hasn't anyone else stepped up to confirm your story?" "We're going to need more than your word," Murphy added, crossing his arms, his posture tense. "From where we're sitting, this looks very different." Just then, the door to the interrogation room swung open, and a lawyer with a determined expression strode in. "I'm Ethan Moore's attorney," he declared. "I need to speak with my client in private." The detectives, clearly displeased, left the room reluctantly, leaving Ethan alone with his lawyer. Mr. Sullivan, the attorney, sat down across from Ethan, concern mingling with resolve on his face. "Ethan, I've spoken to Chloe," Mr. Sullivan began, his voice calm but firm. "She's okay. She's doing everything she can to help sort this out. But you need to stay calm and let us handle it." Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling a faint wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you," he whispered. "This whole thing is a terrible misunderstanding." "I know," Sullivan replied, his voice steady. "But we need to prove that, and we will. I'm working on getting Chloe's medical documents and reaching out to her doctor." When the detectives returned, Mr. Sullivan rose to his feet. "Detectives, my client has the right to a fair defense. Here are preliminary medical records proving Chloe's condition." Reed took the papers, studying them closely, his face remaining unreadable. "This is just the start," he said, his tone still firm. "We need to verify every detail. Until then, Mr. Moore will stay in custody." "This is ridiculous," Ethan protested, feeling his frustration mount. "Chloe needs me, and I'm just as much a victim here." Murphy gave a slow nod, but the skepticism never left his voice. "I get that. But until everything is confirmed, we have to proceed cautiously." The hours that followed were a slow, agonizing blur. Ethan was escorted to a cell where time seemed to stretch endlessly, each moment heavier than the last. His mind raced with memories, sweet moments with Chloe, now stained by the harsh reality of their situation. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a tense atmosphere gripped the maternity ward. Chloe Walker, her petite frame and youthful face starkly contrasting with her swollen abdomen, was rushed into the delivery room. Whispers rippled through the hospital, a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Dr. Bennett, the attending physician, hurried down the hallway, his mind racing. He had handled countless cases, but nothing like this. How can this be possible? He wondered over and over. Upon entering the delivery room, he snapped into action. "Prepare for an emergency C-section," he ordered. The team moved swiftly, prepping the room, sterilizing equipment and getting Chloe ready for the procedure. Chloe lay on the gurney, her eyes closed, face pale and drenched in the pain of labor. Despite her delicate appearance, her body clearly signaled the final stages of childbirth. "Doctor, her vitals are stable," one of the nurses reported, breaking the tense silence. Dr. Bennett nodded and donned his surgical gloves. "All right, let's begin." As he made the initial incision, he couldn't help but notice something strange. Chloe's internal organs were fully developed, as they should be for a woman her age. "This is remarkable," he muttered, though his words did not escape the notice of the rest of the team. The head nurse, Mrs. Thompson, glanced up, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. "What's going on, Doctor?" Dr. Bennett looked at her, eyes wide with astonishment. "Her organs. They're normal for a woman in her 20s. There's no indication that she should look the way she does on the outside." The surgical team worked in silence, processing the strange reality before them as they assisted with the delivery. Within minutes, the cry of a newborn echoed through the room, loud and clear, breaking the tension and filling the room with a fleeting moment of awe. A palpable sense of relief spread across the room. "It's a boy," Dr. Bennett declared, lifting the newborn just high enough for Chloe to see before the nurses took him to be cleaned and examined. Once reassured that the baby was healthy, Dr. Bennett shifted his focus back to Chloe, finishing the procedure with precision to ensure no complications arose. As Chloe was wheeled into recovery, Dr. Bennett removed his gloves and mask, his mind still racing. "We need to look deeper into this," he said, his voice serious as he addressed the team. "Something doesn't quite add up here." Hours passed before Chloe began to stir. Slowly, she blinked against the bright hospital lights, disoriented. A nurse stood by her side, cradling her baby in a soft, cozy blanket. "Chloe, your son is doing wonderfully," the nurse said with a warm smile. "Would you like to hold him?" Chloe, still weak, nodded as her eyes brimmed with tears. She gently took the baby into her arms, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. The nurse watched quietly, allowing the moment to settle before continuing, her tone more somber. "Chloe, Dr. Bennett needs to discuss some things with you regarding your condition." Chloe nodded, her eyes clouded with the understanding that this conversation was inevitable. "I'm ready," she whispered, bracing herself for what was to come. Dr. Bennett entered the room, his face etched with concern. He pulled up a chair beside Chloe's bed, choosing his words carefully as he began. "Chloe, internally, your body has developed like any adult woman, but externally you still have the appearance of a child. Can you help us understand this?" Chloe shifted the baby gently in her arms, her expression calm yet determined. "I have a rare condition called hypopituitarism," she explained, her voice steady. "It affects my pituitary gland and prevents my body from maturing externally, even though I'm fully grown inside." Dr. Bennett nodded, absorbing the information slowly. "That clarifies quite a bit, but we'll need to get all your previous medical records. We need to document everything properly." Chloe glanced down at her son, then back at the doctor. "I understand. I'll cooperate with whatever's needed." Just then, a nurse rushed into the room, her face tense with urgency. "Dr. Bennett, you need to know. Ethan, Chloe's husband, has been arrested. The police have charged him with a serious crime." The words felt like a punch to Chloe's chest. Her world seemed to crumble around her. "No, this must be a mistake," she cried, her voice cracking with disbelief. "Ethan hasn't done anything wrong." Dr. Bennett stood, his expression resolute. "I'm going to talk to the authorities right now. We'll get to the bottom of this." The hours that followed were a chaotic mix of questions, paperwork, and growing anxiety. Nurses and doctors came in and out, gathering information, while Dr. Bennett worked tirelessly to contact Chloe's former physicians and retrieve her medical history. Finally, Dr. Bennett found himself in a private meeting with Captain Thompson, the police chief. "Captain, I need to talk to you about Ethan Moore," Dr. Bennett began, his tone urgent but composed. "I'm listening," Captain Thompson replied, his face unreadable. "Ethan isn't a criminal. His wife, Chloe, suffers from a rare medical disorder that affects her physical development. I have medical records to prove it." Dr. Bennett handed over a folder of documents. Captain Thompson studied the papers intently, his rigid posture softening slightly as he read. "I see. This is certainly unusual. We'll review everything carefully and do what we can to resolve this matter." Back in the recovery room, Chloe clung tightly to her baby, silently praying for a quick resolution. Finally, the door opened and Dr. Bennett stepped in, his face carrying a hint of relief. "Chloe, I have good news," he said gently. "Captain Thompson reviewed the records and they're willing to release Ethan while the investigation continues. Everything is going to be okay." Chloe exhaled deeply, her tears flowing freely now. "Thank you, Doctor. I can't thank you enough." Moments later, Ethan was escorted into the room by 2 officers, his face drawn with tension but brightening instantly when he saw Chloe and their son. "Chloe," he whispered as he approached, his voice trembling with emotion. "I'm here." Chloe looked up at him, her eyes filled with love and relief. "Ethan, it's going to be all right. We'll get through this together." As they embraced, Dr. Bennett and his team worked diligently in the background, documenting Chloe's case and ensuring both she and her newborn received the care they needed. Chloe's case turned out to be one of the most unforgettable in Dr. Bennett's career. Though she gave birth to a healthy baby boy, her frail body, owing to her petite frame and underlying health conditions, meant she needed extended care at the hospital. Word of her situation quickly spread throughout the halls, sparking both curiosity and compassion among staff and patients alike. Every day, Ethan was by Chloe's side, attending to her and their newborn with a level of devotion that deeply touched everyone who witnessed it. Even the nurses, used to seeing a wide range of circumstances, couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy as they watched the tenderness and care Ethan showered on his wife. "Chloe, here's your breakfast." Mrs. Reed, one of the kind-hearted nurses, greeted her with a warm smile, placing the tray on the bedside table. "Oatmeal, fresh squeezed orange juice, and some sliced fruit for you today." "Thank you, Mrs. Reed," Chloe replied softly, her voice faint but brimming with gratitude as she struggled to sit up. Mrs. Reed adjusted the pillows behind her with practiced care. "Everyone here just wants to make sure you're comfortable. Your case has touched us all," she said kindly. Just then, Ethan walked into the room, holding their newborn son Noah in his arms. His face lit up at the sight of Chloe, and he leaned down to plant a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Good morning, love," he murmured affectionately. "Noah and I came to see you." Chloe's face broke into a radiant smile, her eyes gleaming with love and appreciation. "Good morning, Ethan. How's our little one doing?" Ethan cradled Noah with the utmost care, his voice filled with pride. "He's doing great, strong and healthy thanks to you." Mrs. Reed, who had been watching the tender scene unfold, smiled. "Ethan, you're a wonderful father. It's not every day we see such devotion." Ethan glanced at Chloe with adoration in his eyes. "I'd do anything for my family," he replied simply. Over the days, the close bond between Ethan and Chloe became a topic of conversation throughout the hospital. Their love and resilience captured the admiration of both patients and staff. One afternoon, as Ethan helped Chloe take a slow walk down the hallway to regain her strength, an older patient, Mrs. Phillips, approached them with a gentle smile. "Excuse me," she said warmly. "I just wanted to say that watching the love you two have for each other has been truly inspiring. It's something beautiful." Chloe, leaning on Ethan's arm for support, smiled back. "Thank you, Mrs. Phillips. We've been through a lot, but we're lucky to have each other." Mrs. Phillips nodded knowingly. "That's what matters most. Family and love. They're the greatest gifts in life." As the days went by, Chloe slowly regained her strength, though she still required a lot of care. Every day, Ethan made sure she had everything she needed, whether it was bringing her fresh flowers, reading to her from her favorite novels, or simply sitting by her side as she rested. One afternoon, after helping Chloe settle back into bed following a brief walk, a younger nurse, Miss Foster, approached them shyly. "I don't mean to interrupt," she said, a little nervous, "but I just wanted to say how much everyone talks about you, Ethan. The way you take care of Chloe and Noah, it's incredible." Ethan smiled, giving Chloe's hand a gentle squeeze. "Thank you, Miss Foster. I'm just doing what any husband would do for the woman he loves." Chloe, her eyes filling with tears of happiness, looked at him lovingly. "You're the best, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you." Miss Foster's voice wavered slightly, clearly moved by their bond. "You're such a special couple. I hope you both recover quickly and can enjoy your life together." It wasn't just the nurses who were touched by Ethan and Chloe's relationship. Even Dr. Bennett, who had been monitoring Chloe's condition closely, often stopped by to check on them personally. "One thing's for sure, Ethan," Dr. Bennett said one afternoon as he reviewed Chloe's chart. "You and Chloe have faced this challenge with remarkable strength. Your love and commitment to each other are truly something special." "Thank you, Doctor," Ethan replied gratefully, and Chloe nodded in agreement. Dr. Bennett smiled, closing the chart with a sense of satisfaction. "Chloe's recovery is on the right track. With a bit more time and care, you'll both be able to go home soon." The doctor's words brought a wave of hope and relief over Chloe and Ethan. Though they knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, they faced each day with quiet determination, supported by the care and love of those around them. As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Chloe lay in her hospital bed, Ethan seated by her side with little Noah in his arms. The warmth of the setting sun bathed the room, and for a brief moment all was calm and right in their world. She felt an overwhelming sense of serenity and immense gratitude for the life she was living and the love she shared with her family. "Chloe," Ethan whispered softly, his hand tenderly running through her hair. "You mean more to me than anything in this world. That will never change." "And I love you, Ethan," Chloe responded, her voice thick with emotion. "Together, we can conquer anything." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their loved ones and the caring hospital staff. Both Chloe and Ethan knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, they would always have each other. Their love, now stronger than ever, was the unshakable force that would sustain them, guiding them toward a hopeful and bright future. After several weeks spent in the hospital, the day finally arrived when Chloe, Ethan, and their baby boy Noah could return home. The sun beamed overhead, signaling the beginning of a new chapter for the young family. Ethan gently wheeled Chloe out of the hospital as she cradled Noah, his rosy cheeks and bright eyes curiously soaking in the world around him. "We're finally heading home, Chloe," Ethan said with a warm smile as he helped her stand up from the wheelchair. "Everything's going to be just fine." "Yes, Ethan, I'm ready," Chloe replied, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and excitement. "I can't wait to start this new chapter with our family." As they exited the hospital, a throng of reporters and photographers swarmed around them, cameras flashing incessantly. The crowd buzzed with questions. "Chloe, Ethan, how does it feel to finally be going home?" one journalist called out. "We feel so blessed and grateful," Ethan answered, squeezing Chloe's hand gently. "The love and support we've received gave us the strength to get through this." "Chloe, could you share what your hospital experience was like?" another reporter asked, holding a microphone out toward her. Chloe smiled softly, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "It was a tough journey," she said, "but we had an incredible medical team and the unwavering support of our family. I'm deeply thankful for all the love and care we received." As they moved forward, more questions came their way, but Chloe and Ethan remained calm, their hearts filled with gratitude, knowing their story had touched so many lives. Back at home, they settled into their new routine as a family. Time passed quickly, and Noah grew up strong and healthy, surrounded by the boundless love of his parents. Chloe and Ethan's story became a beacon of hope for many, proving that love can indeed triumph over life's toughest obstacles. 6 years later, on a peaceful summer afternoon, Ethan and Chloe sat together on their porch, watching Noah play in the yard. The golden light of the setting sun cast a warm glow over everything, and the air was filled with the sound of their son's laughter. "Look at him, Chloe," Ethan said, with a proud smile, his eyes brimming with love. "It's amazing how much he's grown." "Yes, he's turned into such a wonderful boy," Chloe agreed, squeezing Ethan's hand. "I still can't believe how much our lives have changed since he was born." Ethan nodded, his heart full as he held her hand tightly. "We've been through so much, but every moment has been worth it. I'm so grateful for you and Noah." "And I'm grateful for you, Ethan," Chloe replied, tears of joy filling her eyes. "Your love and strength have carried me through everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." "I'll always be here for you, Chloe," Ethan whispered, leaning in to kiss her gently. "Whatever comes our way, I know we can handle it together." Just then, Noah came running toward them, his face lit up with excitement. "Mom, Dad, look at what I found!" he shouted, proudly holding a tiny insect in his hands. Chloe and Ethan chuckled, sharing a look of pure joy as they watched their son's enthusiasm. "That's amazing, Noah," Ethan said, ruffling his son's hair. "You're such a great little explorer." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them stayed on the porch, soaking in the quiet happiness of simply being together. Chloe and Ethan's journey wasn't just a testament to their love and resilience, it became an inspiration to everyone fortunate enough to know them. And so, hand in hand, surrounded by their son's laughter and each other's steadfast love, they faced the future with unwavering hope. ready to embrace whatever life would bring their way. As we come to the end of this deeply emotional journey, it's worth pausing to reflect on the remarkable story of Chloe and Ethan. This is far more than a simple love story. It's a profound narrative of resilience, empathy, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Chloe's rare condition and her path to becoming a mother illuminate the immense strength found in perseverance. No matter how daunting the obstacles, she never faltered. And Ethan, steadfast and devoted, epitomized what true love and partnership really mean. Together, they taught us that love isn't merely about sharing in the joy, but also about standing by each other through life's hardest trials. Their journey offers a powerful reminder not to judge others based on appearances or incomplete knowledge. Despite facing harsh judgments and prejudice, Chloe and Ethan held firm, focusing on what mattered most, their love for each other and the family they were building. It reminds us that everyone carries a unique story, and we should approach each person with compassion and an open heart. Now, I'd love to hear what resonated with you most. Which moments in their story moved you? What lessons will you carry forward? Share your thoughts below. Let's start a meaningful conversation. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt narratives. Until next time, be kind and keep spreading love.